Well, I have sitting beside me a walking and talking living miracle. His mom and I and his entire family and literally hundreds of people, and I am not exaggerating, hundreds of people have prayed for Tim over 20 plus years.
So I was shooting up drugs every day for over 20 years, living a very depraved homosexual lifestyle. I've lived in Hawaii for 2 years, homeless, lived in San Diego numerous times, homeless, lived in a drain pipe, just traveling all around, basically running from the Lord. I started to actually try to be involved in very depraved things or be higher than a kite on Sunday, specifically, so I would not feel the conviction of the Lord. The Lord actually set this all up, that I moved into a place and my landlord lived on the property. And now she looks back and she says, I did not want to rent you the apartment. I knew you were on drugs. And a guy that was cleaning up the apartment actually goes to the church that she went to, and she said, why don't you give this guy a chance? So she rented me the apartment, and the first weekend I was there, I said, what about this church across the park? And she said, I go to that church, but I go to the Spanish part, but the Lord's been telling me to go to the English part in the morning. So why don't you come with me? So I said, okay. So I went to church with her, and my first Sunday there was horrible. I walked in, I could hear somebody singing as I was walking down the sidewalk, and I thought, I'm going to turn around. And she said, no, come on, just sit with me, sit with me. We sat in the back. I could not sit through the whole service. I was up at the water fountain. I walked downstairs and to see who was downstairs to get a cup of coffee. I mean, the conviction was so strong on me. And afterward, I wanted to leave, and she said, no, they have a cookout every Sunday. And I was like, oh, no. So I went down, and the first person that sat down was the preacher's wife. And she sat down, and she started talking to me. And it was weird because I knew when I walked in, the Lord was telling me that one day I was going to be on that stage singing. And I was like, that's ridiculous. I just shot up drugs. Like 15 minutes before I came here, I was high. So I was like, that's not going to happen to me. Those days are long gone. And she talked to me, and I met the pastor, and he talked to me. And they said, well, why don't you come back on Wednesday? We have a Bible study. I started to give God a little bit. I started to go to church. When I wouldn't show up on a Wednesday, the pastor would be at my door, and he and his wife just kind of bombarded me with love. So this was in the last fall, I started using again, heavily using again. And I had some friends that got out of jail. They came right to my house, and people say backslid, but I backfell. I fell hard. A friend of mine told the pastor, and he drug tested me, and he was so upset and so depressed and so hurt, and I never realized that that's what I was doing to my family all my life, but I never had to see it. I would just get on a plane and leave. And for the first time, it's like I hurt somebody with my behavior, and I was mad. I walked through the park. I said, I'm never going back to those stinking Christians, and I can't believe it because he told me I can't be on the worship team. I can't lead a group. I can't stand in front of the church. And I was so hurt by that. But part of me took over, and I said, I can't believe that I hurt him. Like, he was upset. He cried in front of me. And I said, that's it, I'm not going back to the church. And a friend of mine called, who's not even a Christian, and said, I'm taking you back to that church. You're going back to that church. If I have to pull you, kicking and screaming, you're going back to that church. So I went back, I stood in front of the worship team and told them that I was using drugs. I told my group, and I told everybody that I had to step down and sit in the pews for a while. And they all ran up to me and hugged me and loved me. And they said, we've been there, we love you, but more, God loves you. And this is all about God. It's not about you. It's not about us. And they forgave me. And that started a whole new chapter in my life, a whole new chapter.
Now, there's a story of the prodigal, and he was the prodigal. But the story is different in our family, and I'll let you finish that.
Well, the story is, today we read the story. I read the story to Dad in the car, the prodigal son. And I said, wait a minute, we got to change this story because my brother, my sister, my siblings didn't act that way. They acted just like the father. They ran up and threw their arms around me, and they rejoiced and danced. That was January 10th last year. And I have not touched a drug then. I've not shut up. I've been totally sober, and my whole life, I mean, when I give God everything. I have so much more now than I ever thought. More than the partying, more than the sex, more than the drugs, more than anything. I truly have peace that passes all understanding now. And I never thought I would.